Welcome back, everybody. So glad you could be with me here today. Walter at the workbench. I'd like to talk a little bit about joinery and a little bit about hand joinery and a little bit about machine joinery. So, some of you know that in my past career as a woodworker, I did a lot of machine woodworking. And what I brought out here are some door samples that I made years and years ago. And sadly, I don't have the one sample here that I got from a large manufacturer of cabinet doors. Because you know how you can buy cabinet doors and you can buy trim kits and you can facelift your kitchen cabinets? Well, these doors all sat up in my attic for 20 plus years. The doors that I made remained intact. The doors that they made fell apart. So why would that be? Well, let's first talk about what is joinery. Joinery is when you have two pieces of wood that you join together. Now, this is a sample of a interesting piece that I did as a test because I had to make a window for my attic. And it has to have a bed for the glass, and it had to come together and stay together without any fasteners. So, you may have heard me say this in the past, that if you can draw something, you can lay it out, and you can cut to the line, and you can create just about anything. So, this required ripping stock to width, planing the edges. It required making a rebate or rabbet. Then it required making the open mortise and an open tenon as opposed to a closed mortise and tenon. And then they all come together with some glue and a clamp, and that becomes your frame. If you want, you can put in a single pin or two pins, and it will never come apart until you ask it to. So, this is a bit complex, and this was all machine cut. I have a tenoning jig for my table saw, and once set up, you can make hundreds of these, and they will all be the same. But you can also do one or two by hand. Now, when it came to cabinet doors, whenever I had a kitchen to do, I would make a sample door. Customer wants to see what it's going to look like. So I had a few different jobs. This one for you to look at it, it looks like a maple panel, a maple frame, and a little walnut quarter round tacked in, right? Wait for it. Here are two doors from a job that I had to scrap because the size of the cabinet was changed. Also, curly maple veneer on plywood, and cherry bead or quarter round. So there's two of those. I could make a cabinet that these fit. Now the finish that I used, I was sort of classically trained in the use of lacquer. But here's where I decided to do things a little more complicated. So I didn't want to have to brad nail all of these little pieces in. All right? I wanted them glued on. Now, can you see it? If you're looking carefully, you might see a little triangle of cherry up here and over there. So what I did prior to machining the cope and stick, that's what it's called, I glued on a certain dimension of cherry to the maple. And we had to make sure 100% that when we machined it, it only touched the maple. It didn't cut away much, if any, of the maple, and it left the cherry. So you'll see more if I turn it to the back. You see that? It was glued on, and the cope and stick was done, and there's the cherry, and there's the cherry. So that's called the cope and stick. And the only difference between this joint and something like this is the fact that this just butted up against it, as opposed to having a molded edge here where you'd have the molded edge and you'd have to cope this piece to it. But basically it's the same thing. Okay, except this has the longer tenon where your door panel has a short tenon. Nothing wrong with this. Solid as a rock after 37 years. So that's the walnut one, and that's the cherry one. My favorite kitchen I ever did was all rift or quartered oak. This is a solid panel that was glued up. That's not plywood. So you see to prove that, you see the squiggle grain here? It's there. So that's solid wood. This is about 35 years old. As good as the day it was made. Now that one should really get a cabinet. Because if you notice, it's book matched. These two are book matched to each other, and that one are book matched to each other. So that really should get its own cabinet. But you can even do it with unassuming pine. If you want to make shaker doors, little square corner like that. If you want the cope and stick, you can do the cope and stick. Also, solid wood. Now this one did dry out a little. It's a little bit, the panel is a little bit loose, but that's also because there's no varnish on this. Clear white pine, 30 plus years old. The joints are just as solid as they were the day I made it. So that's about it for everybody. Remember, if you can think it and you can lay it out, first on paper, then on wood, I don't care if you're machine cutting it or if you're hand tool cutting it. Once you got it laid out and you work to your lines, the world's your oyster. I don't like oysters, but it's a saying. Like, subscribe, and share. Head out to your workshop. Practice your joinery. Some of the most unusual ones will come in handy one day. Walter out.